podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The Two-Footed Podcast is brought to you by EPLindex.com and our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider. A virtual privacy network allows you to go online, change your location, access things you're geo-blocked from, while keeping your data safe. So, as an example, if you are a UK expat and want access to BBC iPlayer to watch Match of the Day, or ITV Hub, or all four, will you get that message that says this content is not available in your location? A Liberty Shield VPN gets you around that block, allows you to watch whatever you want on those services, while also keeping your data safe. And it goes further than that. It allows you to open up Netflix's entire library by just changing your IP address. Liberty Shield is the #1 rated VPN provider on Trustpilot with 5-star ratings across the board. So go to libertyshield.com right now, use the code EPL25 and get either the hardware package or the software package. The hardware package is a router that you plug into your existing router, and any item you want to change the IP address on, be it your phone or your television, you connect that to the new Liberty Shield router. All other items can remain connected to your existing router. There's also a software package which is instantly downloadable to your device and you can get using straight away. Again, libertyshield.com, EPL25 for 25% off at checkout. We're also brought to you by Home of Hopcroft, a giftware and homeware company located in Scotland but shipping worldwide. Check out homeofhopcroft.co.uk and do check out the EPL Index and Anfield Index shops, which you'll find on Etsy. Use the codes EPL10 or RED10 for 10% off at checkout. And lastly, do remember to check out A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. That podcast is on this feed before every Premier League match week. And then the EPL Roundtable, hosted by Kevin DeVries, on its own EPL Roundtable feed. So just search EPL Roundtable in your podcast device. And that's out after every match week. Now, on with the show. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Tuesday. It is the 2nd of July. Hope you're all well and having yourselves a pleasant day. The weather's a bit moody. It's a bit moody today. Do you know what was moody? Was watching that utter tripe in the Euros yesterday. So, you'll remember before the Euros, I did say I wasn't looking forward to them. And then, as the first round of group games went on, they were quite good. The second round was good, but not as good. The third round was close to diabolical. And the knockouts thus far have been largely trash. Especially England, Slovakia, France, Belgium, and Portugal, Slovenia. Switzerland, Italy wasn't a good game, but the Swiss scored 2 good goals. Germany, Denmark wasn't a good game. The outcome changed on a questionable penalty. Spain played well. I would give them that. They've been the best team in the tournament thus far. And it's not all that close. Germany and Austria would be the next two. But so many teams just disappointing us time and time again. And yesterday it was the turn of France and Belgium, who've been abject at best in this competition thus far, to let us down. So France win 1-0. Jan Vertonghen own goal. Randall Kolo-Muani's shot was going probably in the general direction of the corner flag, if it had had the power to get there. Took a deflection off Vertonghen and found its way into the back of the net. Now, from the off, this game was a disappointment because when we saw the teams, France had gone to sort of a diamond midfield, Griezmann behind Thuram and Mbappe, and you thought, okay, that could be fun. Belgium had gone with quite an attack-minded 11, De Bruyne in central midfield, Carrasco wide on the right, Doku wide on the left, Openda in with Lukaku. And it was just shocking. The first change of the game, Colin Muani on for Thuram, 62 minutes. You thought, okay, that makes sense. That's more of an out-and-out 9 than Thuram, who's kind of a striker-winger hybrid. And a minute later, Belgium respond by taking off Openda and bringing on a defensive midfielder in Mangala. And we see no further changes from France. They do eventually score through the own goal on 85 minutes. And Belgium respond 3 minutes later by taking off Carrasco and Castagna and bringing on Lukebakio, who's been poor in the tournament, and De Ketelaere, who, is inconsistent. Just all in all, I thought Tedesco did a very poor job with the Belgians in this tournament. And I understand that it's not his fault. He's inherited a squad it's been babied and mollycoddled for years, and it's been poorly managed for years, long before Martinez. The golden generation of Belgian football was completely wasted because they never once hired a good manager, and they never once tried to rein in the stars and make them work as a cohesive team. And Tedesco's an interesting manager. I mean, he came to attention when he got the Schalke job, and I think he was 32 at the time, and it went really well to begin with. They finished second in his first season, and then he was sacked by the following March because they were a mess. He gets the Spartak Moscow job, goes there, it goes well initially, they get to the top of the table, and then obviously between COVID and the war in Ukraine, it was just, he was never going to continue there. He leaves there with his reputation pretty much intact. Like he did a decent job there, and he gets the Leipzig job, and he takes over midway through the 21-22 season. Early on, once again, as is the way, things go well. But like a month into the next season, he's fired because things have gone badly. And he doesn't seem to know how to turn things around. And this is the issue with him. He's a good preparation coach. He's good when he has coaching time. He's not good in-game. He's still very young. There's absolutely no doubt that he could still go on and become a very, very good manager. He's 38 years of age. He's been managing now for nearly 7 years. He'll be 39 in September. So he was 31 actually when he got the job at Schalke. But regardless, like, he's been sacked by the two big clubs he's managed. Spartak Moscow are a big club in their own right, but it is in the Russian league, and it's not like he lit the world on fire there. And he hasn't done a good job with Belgium. Like, he just hasn't done a good job with them. I don't want to hear about results. I don't want to hear that he's only lost twice in 18 games. With the talent he has at his disposal, they should have put up a much better showing than they did in this tournament. Like, this tournament has been a bit embarrassing for the Belgians. Go back and you start with their first game. They lose to Slovakia. Slovakia score in the 7th minute, and Belgium offer nothing after that. I understand they had goals disallowed. The goals were disallowed. It's not an elite level Slovakian team, and yet Belgium lost to them. And then they played Romania. They scored after 2 minutes. They were pretty average after that. And yes, they could have scored. Lukaku had a goal disallowed. They did score a second, but it's Romania. Like, you should be going out and really showing what you're capable of. And in the final game, they play Ukraine, and it was just tepid at best. And then they play France. They had 2 shots on target. They had 5 shots in the whole game. And I don't understand the coaching decisions. I don't understand the tactical moves. I spoke before the tournament. I didn't understand what was going on with Courtois. I assume a part of it is to do with De Bruyne. But you start the tournament with Zeno de Bast at centre-back. He is the best centre-back you have access to now. And you drop him to play Wout Faes and Jan Vertonghen. I do like Tietê. There's no right back in that squad that I like. You've got half of what could be a decent defence. But when I look at the players that weren't selected, Coney de Winter had an absolutely outstanding season for Genoa. And you didn't pick him. Could easily have slotted into that team. Zeno van Heusden of Standard Liège, when he's not owned by Inter Milan. I know he's had injuries. He's had, I think, 2 or maybe 3 cruciate injuries. But he's a huge talent. He's got 1 cap. He's really, really promising. But Coney de Winter and Zeno de Bast needs to be your centre-back pairing coming out of this tournament, with Tietê at left back, and you figure out who's going to play right back. Surely there's somebody at underage level for Belgium that could step in and play right back. Even if they're not fully ready, you can develop them to be ready in time. If you want to play a back 3, that might work even better because you've got De Kuiper, who can play as a left back or a left wing back. He's another really promising player. If we look at the Belgian under-21 squad quickly, you've got Van der Voort, the hugely promising young goalkeeper who's going to Leipzig this summer. He's the future, but Courtois is the present. But your goalkeeping situation is sorted. I mean, Siquet, the right back who's gone to Freiburg, he's in the under-21 squad. Maybe it's time to give him the opportunity to see what he can do. Because he can't be any worse than Castagne or Meunier. Meunier's years past being useful. What about Sardella at Anderlecht? He's been highly talked of for a couple of years now. You've got tons of midfield quality as well. But the midfield should not be an issue for Belgium, and yet it has been an issue for Belgium. Now, I understand Lavia missed the whole season, and there are reasons that you couldn't have your ideal midfield. But the midfields we saw were so bad, and yet we didn't see Vermeeren, we didn't see Ranks. Onana is a cheat code of a player. You put him with Vermeeren, Vermeeren can sit in that midfield and dictate, and Onana can go box to box and do all the things that he's really good at. Play KDB as a 10. You go Doku one wing, because, let's be fair, Trossard's performances in the competition were shambolic. I don't understand why we didn't see Bakayoko. And then you've got Lukaku up front, behind with KDB behind him. And you can use a Penda off the bench, or you could use a Penda wide with Bakayoko on the other side. Like anything other than just continue to roll out the same stuff. Yannick Carrasco hasn't really cared about football in a long time. He has moved for the money multiple times. He doesn't perform well at international level, and he continually gets selected. I just don't... Like, Doku was so poor in this competition. He beats a man, and then his first thought is, I'm going to go back and beat him again. There's no thought of, I'm going to make something actually happen here. At least with Bakayoko, he has purpose on the ball. But we don't see that with Doku. There's so much talent here. Like, the Ketelier is your long-term 10. Openda is the long-term 9. Doku, once he gets his act together, and Bakayoko is the wingers. You've got Duranville, who's at Dortmund, who's super talented. You've got Malik Fofana, the winger at Lyon, who's super talented. These are players that need to be getting pushed into your first team very, very soon. Mandela Chiesa needs to be brought into it. Lavia needs to be brought back in. Like, the next time you pick the Belgian national squad, the only players over the age of 25 you should pick, really and truly, are Lukaku, KDB, and Courtois. And if either Courtois or KDB don't want to be involved, fine. Fine, you can't have infighting. You can't have senior players meeting up and not speaking to each other. Start to promote the next generation, because that generation failed. Ultimately, they won nothing, despite having one of the most talented groups we've seen at international level. All of them coming through together and amounting to nothing. The French move on. They've scored 3 goals in the tournament, a penalty and 2 own goals. And that's not ideal, obviously. Mbappe hasn't played well. Whether the nose is still bothering him or not, I've no idea. But he's not playing well. Portugal versus Slovenia, 0-0. Cristiano missed a penalty, had himself a big old cry, and then stepped up in the penalty shootout and scored with a really good penalty to his credit. As did Bruno Fernandes, as did Bernardo Silva. All 3 Slovenians missed, and Portugal go through. It's a shame. I was hoping Slovenia could potentially reach the quarterfinals, maybe even the semi-finals, without actually winning a game. That would have just been fantastic. But they leave the tournament having not lost a game. 4 games, 4 draws. Conceded 2 goals. Really strong defensively. Jacobijo, outstanding again last night. Oblak is as good as there is on the planet. If Sesko had a little bit more composure, we'd be talking about a 1-0 Slovenia win. Goes through on goal. Costa comes out. He doesn't do a good job at narrowing the angle. If Sesko drags the ball to his left, he's tapping into an empty net while Costa's flailed on the floor. And there was loads of space, loads of time, loads of opportunity to do it. It's a weak right-footed shot. If he moves the ball onto his left foot and shoots, again, the angle favours him. But Costa went down so early, all he had to do was dummy that shot and just drag it round him, and he was in to tap home with no goalkeeper. Credit to Costa, the saves in the penalty shootout were good. They were pretty decent penalties. They weren't great penalties, but they were decent. They were well enough hit. And he made the saves when it mattered. So, Portugal go through, and they will take on France in the next round. So the top half of the draw, Spain, Germany, Portugal, France. I mean, that's the 4 I think everybody expected. But that's 4 teams everybody expected would reach the quarterfinals. But nobody expected that France would be in the top half of the draw. Had they won their group, they'd have been in the bottom half of the draw. So Spain, Germany, that's a repeat of the 2008 final, which Spain won. And then Portugal, France is a repeat of the 2016 final, which Portugal won. England, Switzerland, and then we await the others. And those we will find out tonight. 5 p.m. game, it's Romania versus the Netherlands. The teams are in. The Dutch have gone. Verbruggen, Dumfries, De Vries, Van Dijk, Aki, Shooting and Reinders, Steven Bergwijn off the right, Cody Gakpo off the left, Xavi Simons as the 10, and Memphis Depay. Bergwijn is an interesting inclusion. I'm not really sure why he's gone with him in this one. He could have gone with Frimpong. Bergwijn did not play against Poland. Did not play against France. And did not play against Austria. So this will be his first game in the tournament, which seems odd that you would include him for your round of 16 game. For the Romanians, it's Nita in goal, Ratuj at right back, Dragusin and Burke at centre back, Mogos at left back, Marin, Sancho, and the other Marin, Razvan, as the three in midfield. Man on the right, Hadji on the left, and Dragus as the 9. I'm expecting the Netherlands to win, but I do think Romania will cause them some problems. Romania obviously started off with the great win over Ukraine, then they drew with Belgium, and then they played at a draw with Slovakia that had clearly been arranged beforehand. I'm going to back the Dutch to win. I think they're the better team. They've got more talent. And I feel like they'll just overcome what Romania have to offer. Unless Romania catch them early. If Romania get a couple of goals up in the first half, then I think the Netherlands are dead and buried. Because I don't know if there's 2 goals in this Netherlands team if they're 2-0 behind. I feel if they get the first and they're ahead and Romania have to push on to them, then I think they can get the second. But if Romania get the first and sit back, that's where I think the Dutch have problems, and that's where I think Romania could catch them on the counter themselves. It should be a fun game, though. Kicks off in half hour or so. And then, obviously, at 8 p.m, we have Austria versus Turkey. Austria, very unfortunate to lose to France. Then a really good performance against Poland, and then a really good performance against the Netherlands. The Turks, a little bit fortunate to beat Georgia. Then they capitulated against Portugal. And, I mean, their final group game, was anybody overly impressed with their performance against the Czechs? They did win the game with the late goal from Tolson, but I wasn't overly impressed. Çalhanoğlu is suspended for tonight, which is going to be a big blow. I think Austria are going to win that game. I think Austria are the better team. I do think those 2 wide players for Turkey, though, Kenan Yildiz and Arda Güler, they're special talents. So if they're going to win the game, it's going to come from one of those 2. But I think overall Austria are the better team. So that's who I'll go with. In the Copa America, last night we had a very big surprise to those that are not paying attention. As the USA were dumped out, I did say yesterday I thought they were going out. They lost 1-0 to Uruguay. Matthias Oliveira with the only goal of the game on 60 minutes. In a must-win game, the USA managed 8 shots with 3 on target. In the other game in that group, Panama overcame Bolivia. They went 1-0 up through Fajardo on 22 minutes. Bolivia, to their credit, came back into the game and equalised through Miranda, but then Eduardo Guerrero and Cesar Yanis gave Panama a big, big win and sends them through. It's fantastic for football in Panama to see their team advancing to the knockout phase. We have 2 games tonight. Brazil take on Colombia, Costa Rica against Paraguay. As things stand in that group, Colombia are top with 6 points. Brazil are second with 4. Costa Rica have 1. and Paraguay have none. A draw suits both teams, Colombia and Brazil. But the winner plays Panama, while the loser has to face, or the runner-up rather, has to face Uruguay. You definitely want to be playing Uruguay in your next round. Sorry, you definitely don't want to be playing Uruguay in your next round. You definitely want Panama in the next round if you're either of those teams. So the draw suits Colombia more because they'll finish top. Obviously, the win means they finish top. Brazil have to win to avoid Uruguay in the next round. They didn't look good against Costa Rica. They played well against Paraguay, to their credit. But Colombia looked good in both games. So I feel like Colombia, in the form that they're in, should be able to get a draw. But Brazil definitely have the more talented team. Just don't think they're very well managed. And I don't think they take advantage of the squad the way they should. I'm going to go for the Brazil win. But that is putting all of my faith into Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, Lucas Paqueta, Bruno Guimaraes, the elite level players that they have in that squad, and no faith in the manager at all. So that would give us Brazil versus Panama and Colombia versus Uruguay in the knockout games, which I think are quite exciting games. Brazil would beat Panama. I think Uruguay beat Colombia. Argentina, I think, will beat Ecuador. Venezuela, Canada is interesting because Venezuela are the surprise package of the tournament thus far. Canada, talent-wise, I think Canada have probably the two best players in Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David. But as a team, Venezuela are playing so well at the moment. Either way, I think the winner of that loses to Argentina in the semis and we get Argentina into the final. And then Uruguay-Brazil, I think, is a toss of a coin in the semi-final, but I think I'd go Uruguay, which gives us an Argentina-Uruguay final. And it's anyone's bet from there. Right, folks, back after the break. Right, welcome back. So, we got off topic for a few days and not carried on with the series of assessing the Premier League seasons and summer needs of many clubs. And part of that was the next club up with Sheffield United, and it's just not really worth spending too much time talking about them because they have been relegated. And they were relegated in embarrassing fashion. They were absolutely abysmal all season long. They conceded 104 goals. It's the worst ever. Joint worst goal difference ever with minus 69, joining Derby County from that horrendous 07-08 season. They had the record for the worst goals conceded at home. 57 goals conceded on your home ground is absolutely abysmal. Minus 38 at home for their goal difference. Both of them are records. Like, this was a historically terrible Premier League season. So they come up, and you know what? I didn't mind some of the business that they did. They just didn't do nearly enough. They signed Anis Slimani. I like Anis Slimani. I think he's a good player. They signed Benny Traore. He's a good player, but he's young and he's not ready for the Premier League. They signed Austin Trusty, who's average. Vinny Sousa, I really like. Gustavo Hammer, good player. Tom Davies was a gamble worth taking. Cameron Archer, very promising. The issue is, other than Sosa and Hammer, the others are prospects or not good enough to start. So you basically added two starters to your team, but you were replacing Iliman Ndiaye and Sander Berg, who were your two best players the previous season. So you sell both of them, you replace them, slightly different players, obviously Hammer and Jai, but then you don't really do anything else to improve your starting 11. You bring back James McAtee on loan, that was good. You sign Luke Thomas on loan and then bin him off in January for whatever reason. And then in January, you go out and you get Ben Brereton Diaz on loan and Mason Holgate on loan, as well as the young signing of Sam Curtis, the young Irish kid, who's very promising, and Ivo Garbic, the Serbian goalkeeper, Croatian goalkeeper, brought in from Atletico Madrid. But you just didn't do nearly enough to make yourself competitive. And like, in the FA Cup, they beat Gillingham 4-0, and then they get absolutely hammered at home by Brighton in the fourth round. They go out on penalties at home to Lincoln City in the League Cup. Lincoln City. Like, that's completely unacceptable. So not only have you conceded a record number of goals at home during the season, set a new record for the worst goal difference at home during the season, you've been hammered in the FA Cup and knocked out in the League Cup by a League One team. A League One team that finished 7th. Like, they weren't even an elite level League One team. It's just so poor. In the league, like, they won 3 games in the league. They didn't win any of their first 10. They took 1 point from their first 10 games. That was a draw at home to Everton in the 4th game. They lost at home to Palace. They lost away to Forest. Lost at home to City. Unfortunate in that one. Drew at Everton. Lost away to Spurs. Were unfortunate in that. Up to this point, you were looking at it thinking, okay, well, at least they're competitive, you know? They've got 4 defeats, but they're competitive. And then they get absolutely shellacked by Newcastle. 8-0 at home. I think that's the heaviest Premier League home defeat in history. Then you lose away to West Ham, you lose away to Fulham, you lose at home to Manchester United, you get hammered by Arsenal, then you finally win a game. You beat Wolves 2-1. But there's a lot of fortune in it. You got a very late penalty in that one. Then you draw away to Brighton, which is a decent result. You lose at home to Bournemouth. You get hammered at Burnley, which is unacceptable. Lose at home to Liverpool. You win at home against Brentford. James McAtee gets the only goal of the game. You lose at Chelsea. You draw at Villa, which is a good result. You lose at home to Luton. You lose at home to Luton. You lose at City, fine. You draw at home with West Ham, good result. You lose away to Palace. You get hammered at home by Villa. You manage to go and beat Luton 3-1. Fair play. Then you get hammered at home by Brighton, which comes just after the hammering at home by Brighton in the FA Cup like 3 weeks earlier. You lose at Wolves, you get hammered at home by Arsenal, you draw at Bournemouth, you draw at home to Fulham, you lose at Anfield, you get a draw at home to Chelsea, and then it's 7 straight defeats to end the season. Brentford away, Burnley home, United and Newcastle away, Forest home, Everton away, and Spurs home. It's just miserable from start to finish. Absolutely miserable. 28 defeats out of 38 games. Score 35 goals, the least in the division. Only 19 of them come at home. You lose 13 times at home in the league. Like, that is absolutely shocking. And they should be issuing an apology to every single fan. They should have been refunding season tickets, because that's nothing short of a disgrace. Obviously, they'd come up under Paul Heckenbottom. They sacked him in December and replaced him with Chris Wilder. Chris Wilder, who the last time he was in charge, they had another embarrassing Premier League campaign. Wilder made no difference at all. No improvement, just miserable the whole way. He might have had a slightly higher points per game, but it's minuscule. That is just shocking. And we look at their squad to go into next season. Adam Davies out of contract. Wes Fotheringham is gone. Amiss is out of contract. Gerbic, he's under contract for another 3 years. Fair enough, he's a decent goalkeeper. Baldock is gone. Lowe is gone. Basham is gone. I think Egan's gone. Bogle, I think, is out of contract. Like, they had so many players out of contract at the end of the season. Norrington Davies was out of contract. Curtis, Ahmed Hodzic, and Trusty were the only defenders they had. Oh, and Jack Robinson. So you had 4 defenders and 1 goalkeeper under contract for next season. In midfield, Hammer, Norwood is gone, Vinny Sosa, Tom Davies, Ben Osborne is out of contract, Ollie Arblaster is out of contract, Ben Slimine and Brooks all under contract. So you're a bit better in midfield. A talented group. Like, it's a talented group of midfielders. If they could keep that group together, they wouldn't need to add to it in the Championship. Because if you sit Vinny Sousa as your defensive midfielder and play Ben Slimane and Hammer as your other two, that's a really good 3-man midfield. But you'd need depth behind it. And then up front, I mean, McBurney's out of contract. Brewster has a year left. Archer has 3 years left. Brayton Diaz was on loan. Osulu looks promising. Daniel Jebison is out of contract. You should be making sure you get him tied up. And then the players you have on loan, I mean, Koulibaly, you never gave him much of a chance. He's gone now, I think. Certainly was on loan. I assume he's not coming back. Benny Traore, who knows? You put an option to buy into that deal. Like, they need everything. They need backup goalkeepers and maybe a starter. They need a couple of starting defenders and certainly some depth in defence. They need depth in midfield and they need a starter and a couple of depth pieces in attack. Like, they just need everything. And they're having to start over in the Championship, which is going to make it tougher to keep the players that were there and B, attract new players. So Baldock, Fotheringham, Lowe and Osborne have all signed for new clubs. Amissa, Basham, Egan, Jedison, McBurney and Norwood are out of contract at the moment, but I'm almost certain they said goodbye to Basham, Egan and Norwood. Now, they might try and keep McBurney. They might try and keep Jedison. Jedison's very talented. McBurney's a decent Championship striker. But it's just grim. It's absolutely grim. Their squad needs so much work. It's been so poorly managed over the years. Like, so many of those players are with them from their original run in League One. A lot of them now are leaving this summer, but I mean, they've been at the club too long. They're being allowed to leave for free. It's not how you need to run a club. Now you're going to have to spend new money to go and get players in, or you're going to have to try and scrape around and get players on loans and frees. I don't want to talk with them anymore. I'll be back after the break. Right, welcome back. So Spurs have confirmed the signing of Archie Gray for around 30 million, with Joe Rodon going the other way for about 10. Chelsea have confirmed the signing of Kieran Dewsbury-Hall for about the same fee, 30 million. It's a young player going the other way for about 5 million. Not sure Dewsbury Hall really moves the needle at Chelsea, but he's a good player, no question. Wolves have confirmed the signing of Jurgen Strand Larsen. Now, it is a loan for a loan fee of 2.5 million, with the deal automatically becoming permanent for 23 million if certain clauses are triggered. So he scored 13 goals in the league last season for Celta Vigo. He's 24. He's big and strong. 6'4", can also play wide. He is quick. Very good with his back to goal. He's good in the air. Scored 13 in the league last season, 4 in the league the year before. With Groningen, he scored 14 in the league and 9 in the league before that. So, he's had one good season at a high level, but he is still young enough. What is he, 24 years of age? So it's a gamble. But I suppose if it doesn't work, they'll just stop playing him and they won't trigger the obligation to buy. I'm just going to wrap up with the gossip today, folks. I'm not feeling the best. Anthony Gordon's head has been turned by interest in Liverpool. I just don't believe that this is true. Manchester United will offer Matthias de Ligt a 5-year contract as they continue talks with Bayern Munich. United would make another move for Jared Branthwaite if Everton dropped their asking price, but they're not going to. Chelsea want to sign Nico Williams, but he would prefer a move to Barcelona. Galatasaray forward Will Zaha is keen on a return to the Premier League. West Ham, Wolves and Crystal Palace are interested. I think he's happy enough, to be honest. A Saudi Pro League club is in talks with Newcastle over a deal for Miguel Almiron. Arsenal have activated the option to sign David Raya on a permanent deal. It wasn't an option, it was an obligation. It was always going to happen, regardless of what Fabrizio Romano told people to get his clicks. Liverpool and AC Milan are interested in signing Adrien Rabiot. I have doubts. Sevilla are set to sign Albert Sambi-Lokonga on a season-long loan, Southampton are ready to make a £20 million bid for Matt O'Reilly. He's a really good player. Brighton, Brentford, Everton and Southampton are interested in Millwall's English midfielder Josh Stevenson. You're a very talented young midfielder. I think he's 18. Newcastle are determined to keep Alexander Isak amid links with Arsenal and Chelsea. There's no chance of selling him. None. Manchester City have won the race for Ryan McAdoo. Meant to be very talented, coming out of Chelsea's academy. Didn't see a path for himself, so he's moved on. All the top clubs were in for him. Nottingham Forest are expected to offload Lewis O'Brien, with Sheffield United, Preston and Ipswich interested. He's a championship caliber player. Wouldn't be the smartest move for Ipswich, to be fair. Although, if they want to take the path of we'll try and stay up, but if we go down, we'll be ready to come back up, then yeah, that would make sense. Burnley goalkeeper Aaron Muric is set to leave the club this summer, with a number of Premier League clubs interested. I doubt it. He's not good enough to play in the Premier League, so I doubt it. Right, folks, that's going to do me for today. I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.